History. It's a word that often conjures up images of dusty old books and dates that need to be memorized for a test. But history is so much more than that. It's more than just dates and dusty textbooks. It's a living, breathing narrative that connects us all. It's the story of us, of humanity. Every culture, every civilization, every individual has contributed to this grand narrative. It's about understanding who we are and how we got here. By studying history, we uncover the roots of our present-day society. Why should we care? Because history helps us understand the present and navigate the future. It provides context for our current events and challenges. Think of it like a giant tapestry. Each thread tells a story, each color adds depth. Every thread, every color represents an event, a person, an idea. Together they form a complex and beautiful picture. Woven together, they create the intricate picture of our past. This tapestry is ever growing, ever evolving. But what happens when we reach the edge of the tapestry? Does the story end, or does it transform into something new? What happens when history, in a sense, ends? Do we start a new tapestry, or do we continue weaving the old one with new threads? That's where things get really interesting. The end of one story is often the beginning of another. Some philosophers believe we've entered a new era, a time beyond history, a time where the past and future converge, creating a new narrative for humanity. Now, when we say the end of history, we don't mean the world is about to explode or anything dramatic like that. It's a philosophical idea. It suggests that we've reached a point where big, earth-shattering changes in society are unlikely. This idea has been around for a while. German philosopher Hegel, back in the 19th century, talked about it. He believed history was moving towards a kind of final state, like a train reaching its destination. Of course, not everyone agreed with Hegel, but the idea of an end of history continued to intrigue thinkers. Fast forward to the late 20th century, and the concept was revived by political scientist Francis Fukuyama. He argued that with the end of the Cold War and the spread of liberal democracies, humanity might have reached the pinnacle of its socio-political evolution. This doesn't mean that events stop happening or that conflicts cease to exist. Rather, it suggests that the fundamental principles of governance and society have been settled. Critics, however, argue that history is far from over. They point to ongoing struggles, emerging technologies, and shifting global powers as evidence that history is still very much in motion. The debate continues, but the idea of the end of history remains a fascinating lens through which to view our world. Fast forward to the late 20th century, a time of rapid technological advancements and significant cultural shifts. The world was changing at an unprecedented pace, and people were beginning to question the future of society. Enter Francis Fukuyama, a political scientist and philosopher who made waves with his provocative ideas. He argued that liberal democracy, with all its freedoms and complexities, was the ultimate form of government. According to Fukuyama, this system represented the pinnacle of political evolution. He believed that once it spread across the globe, history, in a sense, would reach its endpoint. This idea suggested that the ideological battles that had shaped human history would come to a halt. Now, this was a pretty bold claim, and it sparked a lot of debate. Scholars, politicians, and thinkers from various fields weighed in on Fukuyama's thesis, each bringing their own perspectives and critiques. Some people pointed to the rise of new ideologies and conflicts as proof that Fukuyama was wrong. They argued that the world was far too complex and dynamic for any single political system to mark the end of history. Others argued that while history might not have ended, it had certainly slowed down. They believed that the spread of liberal democracy had created a more stable and predictable world, even if it wasn't the final chapter of human history. Section 4. Living in the Shadow of the End. So, what does it mean to live in a post-historical age? Well, for one thing, it can feel like we're living in the shadow of the past. Big narratives, grand ideologies can seem less relevant. Instead, we're bombarded with information, with multiple perspectives, with a constant stream of news and events. It can feel overwhelming, fragmented, like we're living in a perpetual now. Section 5. why history still matters. But here's the thing, even in a post-historical age, history still matters. It's the foundation on which we build our present and our future. Understanding the mistakes and triumphs of the past can help us make better choices today. History gives us context, perspective. It reminds us that change is constant, that progress is rarely linear, and, most importantly, it reminds us that we are all part of something bigger than ourselves.